Hi, everybody. My name is Miles Liebtog. I'm a market manager for St. Killian Importing, and I'm located in Columbus, Ohio. I'm an advanced Cicerone, a beer writer, an avid home brewer, and I've worked in the beer industry for about 10 years. St. Killian Importing is a full service nationwide importer that sells beers to wholesalers in every state in the Union from more than 18 countries all around the world. We have some major international brands like Carlsberg, Kronenberg, and Bitburger, and also an ever expanding portfolio of specialty beers from smaller producers all over Europe and beyond. Today, I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite of our smaller producers, Kloster Brewery Andechs. The Andechs Monastery, which you can see pictured on the bottle right here, is a Benedictine priory that dates to the early 12th century. Located about 30 minutes southwest of Munich, it's been a site of pilgrimage for nearly 900 years. The monastery is perched atop the Heilige Berg, or Holy Mountain of Bavaria, and the distinctive spire of the abbey itself is present in basically all the brewery's branding and products. So the brewery itself dates back about 500 years and serves as a sort of hospitality arm of the monastery, welcoming pilgrims, both ecclesiastical and secular. Since the 1970s, the Andechs Brewery has been located at the foot of the hill of the Berg and features a 7-story malt house and modern production facility and bottling line. Many people are aware of Weihenstephaner's claim to be the world's oldest brewery, and it does trace its lineage back to a monastic brewery that was located on that site for many hundreds of years. And it is also famous for being the site of the world-renowned brewing school, the Weihenstephan Institute. But it is not a monastic brewery. It's actually a Staatsbrauerei, so a state brewery. It's owned by the state of Bavaria itself. Andechs, on the other hand, is to this day a monastic brewery, with monks still overseeing the brewing operations in much the same way as Trappist monks still oversee the production of Trappist beers in Belgium and other parts of the world as well. The monks of Andechs use the profits from the sale of Andechser beer to fund charitable works in Munich and throughout Bavaria, as well as the upkeep of the abbey and monastery. And as a monastic brewery, Andechs is largely exempt from taxes by the state of Bavaria and the federal government of Germany. All Andechser beer is brewed on site at Kloster Andechs, and the brewery produces around 85,000 barrels of beer per year. For a little bit of context, that's about a third as much as a large regional American craft brewery like Deschutes or Dogfish Head. As a Bavarian brewery, Andechs is beholden to the famous Reinheitsgebot, or German purity law. But unlike some Bavarian breweries, they produce both ales and lagers. Their top fermenting beers are exclusively wheat beers, while their bottom fermenting lagers range from a golden Munich Helles to a pale fest beer, to a brightly hopped Maibach, to a dark and quite decadent Doppelbock, which is what we are here to take a look at and taste today. So the Doppelbock Dunkel, Dunkel just meaning dark, so this is a dark bock. This is the strongest beer in the whole Andechs lineup, at 7.1% ABV, which may not sound like a lot in the American context, but is quite strong in the German beer tradition. Andechs is also the only monastic brewery in the country that produces a bock year-round. So a word on the style, or the style family. So bocks are a family of strong lagers that have deep roots in historical German brewing tradition. The term bock is actually a corruption or Bavarian regional dialect form of Einbeck. Einbeck is a trading city in northwest Germany where the bock style originated in the 15th century. Bavarians pronounce Einbeck as Einbock, which is a homonym for the German word for goat, which explains the long tradition of goats that are used in commercial bock branding and imagery, although not in this one. The original bocks were actually top fermenting ales, as all beers made in Germany were at that time. But a couple centuries later, Bavarian brewers adopted the style to the process of lager brewing, which was increasingly popular from the 18th century on. For the most part, all commercial bocks today are cool fermented and cold conditioned lagers, except for the Weizenbock, which is a strong wheat ale, confusingly. So Weizenbock is actually sort of like a strong Bock influenced Hefeweizen. Um, Nonetheless, Bocks are generally stronger than most other everyday lagers, especially in Bavaria. Historically, they were consumed on special occasions like holidays, feast days, and festivals. And there's a long association of Bocks with monastic brewing. There's a very common old chestnut that's probably apocryphal that monks brewed this stronger style specifically to consume during times of fasting. There's little actual evidence of that, but it's just one of those bits of beer lore that is very well traveled. But Bocks range in strength from around 6% ABV for a typical or single Bock, and from 6 to 8% for the light colored Helles or Maibach, which is sort of a springtime seasonal specialty. Andechs makes a fantastic one. And 7 to 10 or even 12% for a typical Doppelbock. And then Icebox can be even stronger. That's a freeze distilled version of a Doppelbock where the freeze distilling method is used to remove water and concentrate the alcohol in those beers. And it leaves a very intense, sweet, kind of boozy and cordial-like drink that can top out at like 13% or even higher. But the Doppelbock style right here is really all about malt and flavors that come from melanoidins. Andechs Doppelbock, even at the low end of the ABV spectrum, is a really great example of this. The darker specialty malts used in this beer, like Munich and Vienna malt, give a base of darker color and kind of a toasty, lightly caramel aromas and flavors that are concentrated and further developed in the brewing of this beer by a time-honored German brewing method known as decoction mashing. Decoction mashing is a big part of Bavarian brewing. I would say most breweries, traditional breweries, do it. And this is a process by which a part of the mash or the mixture of malt, specialty grain, and hot water that starts the brewing process, they draw off a portion of that and then boil it for an extended period of time. And what that does is cause a Maillard reaction. So Maillard reaction is the chemical reaction that causes browning in foods and drinks, caramelization, toasting. So the longer the boil, the more that Maillard reaction happens, the more of that melanoidin character comes out in the beer. So melanoidins give beers like this, they're kind of toasty, caramel, dark fruit-like flavors and aromas that really deep malt intensity. I'm going to go ahead and crack this bottle right here. I'd encourage you to do the same. Pouring this in a Tiku glass just because it's what I have handy. I would say proper glassware for a Doppelbock. If you're in Germany, you're probably mostly going to get served this in a half-liter dimpled mug or stein, sometimes in a Pilsner glass, but I like to pour it in a tulip style just to open up the aromas. Yeah, that smells good. So lots of layers of flavor and aromas here. Soft roast and caramel up front, and then that dark dried fruit character like raisins or plum. Very full, really lusciously malty. And it finishes with just a little bit of cocoa and a touch of alcohol. Beer's fermented about 50 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 days or so, and then it's lagered or cold conditioned for several months more, depending on how the production schedule is going. Really, really beautiful beer. The light's a little low in here, but you can see it's kind of a dark chestnut color with some ruby highlights in there. And just absolutely delicious. Almost has those melanoidins when they develop to a certain extent and get really intense, almost veer into what I would describe as like an edge of savoriness, which calls for food, in my opinion. So beers like this, beg for food. German beer and German food, obviously. The deep maltiness, those Maillard reaction flavors would make this a perfect pairing for grilled or seared meats of all types. barbecue with red sauce, hearty pasta preparations, chocolate cake, and especially strong cheeses like an aged Gouda or an aged goat cheese. I love aged strong cheese with Doppelbock. And if you like blue cheese, like a Stilton, that's a really interesting combination as well. So this is a beautiful beer from a very beautiful and special place. If you find yourself in Munich, you owe it to yourself to take the hour or so train trip to the southwest and visit the monastery. Walk, the brewery's at the bottom of the hill, but you'll have to climb the Heilige Berg to visit the monastery to experience the full complement of Bavarian hospitality they have there. It's really, really beautiful place, the monastery especially. And if you can't make it out of the city, Andechs or Andam, which is their Gasthaus, restaurant, pub, is in the shadow of the famous Frauenkirche, sort of in the center of the city. It's right there. That's why Andechs or Amdam, by the cathedral. It's a great place to experience all their beers, the hospitality, the food, and some of their schnapps as well. A lot of German breweries have schnapps that not all of them make them out of the country. Unfortunately, the Andechs schnapps don't make it out of the country, but it's a fun thing to try if you're there. So that's Andechs Doppelbock Dunkel. Thank you all so much. Have a fantastic weekend, and Prost.